my name is Natalie, and today I'm going to be talking about Heartless by Marissa Meyer. Now, if none of you have never heard of Marissa Meyer as a writer, she basically does the genre of fractured fairy tales. So she takes a classic or well-known fairy tale and rewrites it either in the future, which is the case for the Lunar Chronicles, or even in the past and kind of writes a prequel to what the original fairy tale was going to be. I first discovered Marissa Meyer's writing when I entered high school, and when a older student in the school recommended the book to me, and I was kind of like, okay, sounds amazing. I've never heard of it, but it sounds like my kind of story. That first summer of my freshman year, I decided to read the entire Lunar Chronicles series, and oh, what a journey that was. But that's for another episode. All you've got to know about this is that I fell in love with Marissa Meyer's story and writing. Now, her writing at first can appear kind of simple and even a little bit, I don't want to say childlike, but a little more on the less complicated side. I realize now why she does that. It's because you never expect the plot twists to come, and it's actually a genius way of telling a story. If you have super complicated sentences, someone might be able to figure out almost immediately that you're going to do something or something is going to happen. In her writing, it's kind of like, okay, the story's going along and it's all nice, and oh my gosh, what just happened? And it kind of throws it out there and you are stunned. And I really like that about her writing, and I kind of discovered that once I started discovering the plot twists. Now, after reading the Lunar Chronicles, I discovered Heartless, and I thought, okay, let's go have my heart broken again. Marissa Meyer is really good at breaking your heart and really brings out those characters that you truly fall in love with and that are really memorable. Heartless takes place in the past and tells the prequel to the Queen of Hearts story from Alice in Wonderland. As you know, in Alice in Wonderland, or if you don't know, basically, she is what they call heartless, if you want an adjective to describe her. She is ruthless, tries to kill Alice, does terrible things to her croquet birds, is overall very mean, and her kind of catchphrase is off with their heads. So you already know that this book is going to end bad. The story starts off simple enough. You've got a girl named Catherine who loves baking, who suddenly is in her house and a lemon tree grows, and she doesn't know where it came from, and she sees these eyes in her dreams, golden eyes of this boy that she has no idea who he is. So you've got a girl dreaming about a boy making sweets. Definitely sounds like something from Disney. As you go along, you meet more characters that you would expect to meet. The Mad Hatter, the actual king who will eventually become the queen's husband. You meet jesters, you meet people who are part of it, and whatever. You meet the main antagonist, the Jabberwocky, and you meet a person named Peter, who is also called Sir Peter, and if you've ever heard the rhyme, Peter, Peter, Pumpkin Eater, you might see where this is going. While the story is simple enough in its nature, about a girl trying to avoid the promises of the king and avoid kind of being married to him, really not wanting that life, even though it's exactly what her parents want, and also trying to fulfill her dream of opening a bakery, while also slowly falling in love with the court jester named Jest. What a clever name. And just that whole kind of story presents itself to the reader. Now, what makes this story so tragic is when she actually really starts to fall in love with Jest and discovers his world with the Mad Hatter and his own land, a land called Chess, and where she might finally be able to live her happily ever after. Unfortunately, a lot of terrible events occur within this book that keep Jest and Catherine apart. The whole book kind of revolves around how the Queen of Hearts became heartless and what exactly happened in her past that made her such a terrible villain. So you kind of know from the beginning what you're getting yourself into, and you know it's going to be a heartbreaking story, and you know there's going to be a lot of twists, turns, and a lot of bad things that happen in this book, but you still go into it willingly. Now, I am so glad that I read this book because the guy, Jest, is probably one of my favorite male protagonist characters in any book I've ever read. He's very sweet, very kind, and if you've listened to my book tour of my whole bookshelf, you'll know that he is second to Akinley, who is the main character of The Siren. The two of them kind of emulate the perfect kind of protagonist that is a male and the real and true kindness that a person can have. Not just like, oh my gosh, he is such a good looking protagonist, or, he's amazing and I want to fangirl over him as much as possible. It wasn't exactly like that. He's sweet and truly kind and truly cares about Catherine and her life, wants her to fulfill her dreams, and wants her to have everything that he thinks she deserves. And all in all, that's a really nice guy. Of course, with all the things happening in the book and the slowly revolving story towards dismay, you know that something is probably going to happen to Jest, and you figure it out pretty much when you crack the book open. This is not a spoiler, as you already know that the Queen of Hearts had to marry a king to become queen, and that she is already heartless. Just the way that it happens, you really think that there could be hope for just a second, and it's torn away from you. And I just really thought that this book was a really good prelude to the original story. And I really think that Marissa Meyer knows what she is doing when she writes these fractured fairy tales, and I really hope to keep discovering them. I've made it my duty, basically, to every year around the first or second week of June to be reading one of her books to kind of remind me that, there's fairy tales out there, and that to remind myself that her writing is something that I can always go back to. And that's why currently I'm reading Renegades by her. But I really think that this is a good book and that you should definitely read it, and I recommend it with my whole heart. Know going into it that you will experience a lot of heartbreak, and I know I've told friends about it and they specifically say they cannot read it because of what will occur, and will occur. But I think it's a great path to go on, and that is why I recommend Heartless by Marissa Meyer.